Pirates possessing priceless painting peel from pursuing Pegasus Patrol policing Pyro and plan to pump their portfolio per popping into Platinum Bay to purchase permafrost and powerable parts to possibly promote peak performance of Perseus. Particularly pissed off, panicked, and perturbed Pisces pilot and peculiar pet Pico Penguin plushie pine over pending predator presence. What's up, everybody? I'm Cody James Casey, and today I want to talk about the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 again. I recorded a video a few days ago where I kind of set it up for the first time and used it and just gave my first impressions of it. I'm going to link that video right up here. But now that I've had it for a few days, I've gathered a few more thoughts on it, learned some things that I like and dislike about it, and I found a few tricks to kind of make it work a little bit better for me. Both, you know, just the eye tracker in general, but also like specifically in Star Citizen. So I thought it might be fun to share those with you. Just full disclosure, I am no way associated with Tobii. I just went and bought this thing because it looked really cool, and now I'm reviewing it. So, you know, this isn't a sponsored video, or I'm not being like paid to promote it in any way. But, you know, Tobii, if you happen to see this video and you like sending stuff around, I'm definitely down to talk about that. So to kick things off, I'm going to show some footage of me playing Arena Commander. I want to talk about just how my behavior has been changed a little bit by having the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 and what it's allowed me to do. And then after that, I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way when getting used to the eye tracker. And hopefully I'll be able to save you some time and effort if you decide to buy it yourself. And then finally, I just want to talk about who I think this eye tracker is for. I'm going to have the timeline divided into all those sections, so feel free to jump around if you're looking for something specific. Okay, so let's jump into some action here. I am in Pirate Swarm, and I have the Tobii Ghost tool on, so you can actually see where my eyes are looking during this. I'm going to show off just some of these fights, and I'm going to freeze frame it during spots where I think the eye tracker has specifically helped me. So right here, you can see that I'm looking down at my radar. I notice that there is an enemy above me next to my friend. So I look up, and right here, you can see that I am able to locate this enemy before the nose of my ship is pointed at them. In this scenario, I was a little sluggish to do anything about it, but you can imagine that sometimes knowing where your target is just a second or two earlier might mean, you know, the difference between getting a lock on them and them taking you out. So that is one sort of major use case for the Tobii Eye Tracker that I found so far. Keeping on that theme of having your enemies in your line of sight, I've been getting into the habit of rolling my ship so that when an enemy passes me, I'm taking advantage of my very open top canopy in the Drake Buccaneer just to keep my enemies in sight so that I'm much more quick to then point my nose of the ship at them and finish them off. And I do this trick a lot now. I try to figure out what direction the enemy is going to be going and make it so that the top of my ship is going to be, you know, what they pass, so that I can really take advantage of that extended line of sight. And this might vary from ship to ship, but at least in my fighter of choice, it's something that has been really fun for me to practice. And sometimes it ends up being less about the sort of tactical advantage that you get and more about just catching those really cool moments in fights that you would have otherwise missed if you were just looking straight ahead. In this fight right here, I decided to go in with a missile, but as I approached, I noticed that my enemy also fired a missile at me right here. So I was immediately nervous of this. And as soon as I took him out, I quickly looked up just to try to get that missile in my line of sight, just so I knew where it was, so that I could figure out how to properly deploy my countermeasures if necessary. In this case, it wasn't. And, you know, like, sometimes I just feel like my enemies know that I'm using the Tobii 5 Eye Tracker. They could, like, sense it and fear it. Like, that guy was so afraid he crashed right into that asteroid. And I felt like such a badass because I'm like, oh, look at me using my eye tracker. I never told you I was a good pilot, did I? So what I'm finding as I'm sort of transitioning from using a mouse and keyboard to using a HOTAS setup in combat is that while the joysticks and rudder pedals give you greater control and customization to how you fly your ship, it's still super important that you have the ability to look around freely in your cockpit. This was something that I had a little bit with my keyboard because I could hold the Z key in and move my mouse to look around. But as soon as I moved to joysticks and took my hands off the keyboard, I lost that ability. So the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 has really given me that freedom of motion back, and it has done wonders to my performance in combat, but also just my the enjoyment of fighting. I'm building this sort of immersive cockpit sim, but I also need to be able to look around in an immersive way. So that's just something that I've really been enjoying so far. As I started using the Tobii Eye Tracker, I discovered a couple things that helped me just get better results out of it, just a couple tips. And so I present to you Tobii tip number 1. Calibrate properly and calibrate often. When you're using this device, you might find that on some days you're going to be sitting a little bit closer to the keyboard, maybe some days you'll be sitting a little bit further, you might be more hunched over on some days. I've found that I get better performance out of this device if I calibrate every time I use it. And it doesn't take that long, it takes about a minute. You have to look at 3 sets of dots, and that's it. I don't have to calibrate every time, but it's just a habit that I've built, and I find that it kind of works out better for me. And when you calibrate this, make sure that you're doing it properly. You want to calibrate it how you're going to play. Don't sit here with a really tall posture and calibrate it, and then as soon as you start playing, go into like slumped over gamer stance. Just calibrate it in slumped over gamer stance. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And get used to using the Tobii Ghost tool. You can enable it by just being on the homepage in the Tobii Experience Tracker. This thing shows you where you're looking, so you could get a sense of if your calibration is correct. Right now I'm looking at basically all the yellow parts of these penguins. Do I need to recalibrate it? It looks like when I'm kind of looking at this beak, it's a little bit high, so maybe I do. Tobii tip number 2. Respect the operating distance. The Tobii Eye Tracker 5 works at a distance of 45 to 95 centimeters, or 18 to 37 freedom units. You might be surprised with how close or far you're actually sitting from your screen. You're best off to just measure it. Especially in Star Citizen, where a lot of people who I suspect are going to be using the Tobii Eye Tracker are probably also going to be using HOTAS setups. I find that the maximum distance of the tracker is kind of hard to work around. I know based on my joystick setup and how I have them mounted to my desk, I'm kind of forced to be a little bit further from my desk than the Tobii Tracker wants. I'm like at the very edge of the supported distance. And that's even after I've pulled my monitor way closer than it normally would be. Tobii, I'm sure if it were easy, you would have already done it, but please figure out a way to maybe extend that maximum range to like 4 feet. I think that would be like a really great sweet spot for people who are using HOTAS setups. And I don't know, do you just need more infrared? Just pump out some more infrared? Maybe some infra blue? Tobii tip number 3. Use multiple profiles. I play Star Citizen wearing both contacts and glasses. If I am further away from the screen at my HOTAS and I have my calibration set up for my contact lenses, right now I'm looking at the yellow beak, and I put on my glasses, you can see how far off that changes. It's just like lower. I'm still like looking at the yellow beak there. I've noticed that this isn't as extreme when I'm close up. I find that I'm in different spots depending on what I'm doing. If I'm controlling my character in FPS mode, I'm much closer than if I'm sitting at my HOTAS setup and kind of lean back. You can't just have one profile and expect it to work great for these different scenarios. It's very easy to switch between them, you just have to click a button. I have 4 profiles. I have when I'm wearing contacts and am at far distance on my HOTAS, when I'm at contacts and am close up in FPS, when I'm wearing glasses and I'm close up in FPS, and when I'm wearing glasses and I'm far away on my HOTAS. Tobii tip number 4, make head tracking toggleable. There are times when you might just want to turn this off. If you have multiple monitors or like a really wide display or something, and you want to look over at a different part of the screen, like I'm doing right now, you might not want your entire Star Citizen view to change. So what I found is that if I just bind a button on my joystick to turn the head tracking off, which I have it disabled right now I could like look at my screen recording stuff over here, I could look at Discord over here, and not have my view just panning all over the place. By default, this is already bound to the number pad / on your keyboard, but I found that having something on my joystick worked a lot better for me. Also, there may be times when the view in Star Citizen gets really messed up, and let me see, like sometimes it gets really confused if I start like putting stuff in front of my face. It's kind of hard to trigger right now. It's working really well, but sometimes I'll be like stuck looking down or something, even though I'm actually looking straight ahead. I found in those scenarios, just toggling head tracking off and then on again like fixes it like all the time. So should you buy the Tobii Eye Tracker 5? I think there are maybe a few things to consider when asking yourself that. The first thing might just be the price point. At the time of this recording, the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 is $230 US. I know that might be a little bit steep for some people, especially like if they just bought an entire HOTAS setup. I know like anything in this type of gear tends to add up pretty quickly. I know that there are some other alternatives for head tracking. People seem to like the Track IR stuff, and it is quite a bit cheaper, so price might be something to consider. That said, my experience with the Tobii head tracker has been really, really great. It is such a solid tool. It was super intuitive, very easy to set up. It just kind of works. I didn't really have to tweak anything, and especially now that Star Citizen officially supports it, it might be a good investment to make, because I would imagine that the experience is only going to get better and better as time goes on. If you're coming from a HOTAS setup and you're not using head tracking yet, I think it's probably the next thing that you should be looking into. And if you're coming from mouse and keyboard, I personally would probably invest the money into some HOTAS gear like a throttle or a joystick, but maybe you're just somebody who prefers to keep their hands on the keyboard, and you're just looking for an extra bit of freedom so that you don't always have to slam on the Z key. I think that's totally reasonable too. The beauty of Star Citizen and like all of the tools that we have available to us is that you can really customize your setup to be, just about any way you want it to be. Star Citizen is such a beautiful game, and the Tobii Eye Tracker makes it very easy to look at all of my surroundings while I'm flying around. Along with my HOTAS setup, the Eye Tracker really helps me have this feeling of immersion and realism that feels so incredibly natural. And after getting used to the head tracking in FPS mode, I'm able to kind of carry that same level of immersion over as I take in my environment while being able to keep my character pointed exactly where they need to be. So I would like to thank you for sticking around and watching this video. I hope that's been helpful, whether perhaps it's influencing your decision to purchase the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, or perhaps it's just piquing your curiosity around head and eye tracking in general. If you have any thoughts or comments or unanswered questions that I didn't get to, please leave them below and I'll definitely respond pretty quickly. And if you've liked the video, consider liking it and perhaps subscribing to the channel and hit that notification icon so that you get notified when I post new stuff. Are there videos that you want me to make? Are there specific types of content that you would like to see? Just let me know. So until next time, thanks for stopping by Throne as Citizen. I'm Cody James Casey, and have a good one.